in November 2021 that the National Economic Council recommended the increase in the pump price of petrol, expectedly to be within the region of about 302 naira per litre. The reasons are not far-fetched. Currently, accruals into the Federation account is shortchanged by over 250 billion naira on the monthly basis. That is expected to rise to about 3 trillion naira in the year 2022. This has raised the issue of should we continue to enjoy subsidy or to remove subsidy outrightly so that the forces of demand and supply can actually determine the price of petrol. The debate is on. Labour is threatening on the one hand that should that happen, then they should get ready. The federal government should get ready for a protest that is even worse than the hashtag #EndSARS protest. Nobody wants to experience that. So what is the way out in this semi-lockdown on the issue of fuel price or fuel subsidy removal? I'm joined now by a crack team of panelists. Let me thank very especially from my extreme right, the NBA Benin Branch Chairman, Barrister Pius Oiwo. Barrister Oiwo, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I also have with us in the studio the immediate past chairman of Academic Staff Union of Nigeria Universities, ASU, Professor Julius Yasere. Prof, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and good morning, viewers.
Let me welcome very especially an economist and statistician, Destiny Owobo, who is the CEO of P-Brain Tutorials. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
I also want to thank very especially a regular panelist on our business segment on ITV, Dr. Osaze Iyoha. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's begin the conversation right now. Destiny, let me start with you.
Yeah.
The issue of subsidy has become a thorny one. For some, it may even be a major talking point in the 2023 elections. How justifiable is the decision to remove subsidy, especially at a time like this? There is economic downturn due to the fangs birthed by the pandemic.
Yes, I would just like, for the purpose of my viewers, to liken what we are about to do to a life-saving amputation. Okay, if in medical terms, if you have, there are certain diseases that are spreading. For example, a gangrene disease. Now, if you have gangrene at any part of your body, you have to, it will grow over time and spread and destroy the body and cause sepsis and many diseases. Okay. Now, doctors will recommend that you amputate the person at the point where the gangrene has gotten to, before it spirals and kills the person. So, this subsidy removal issue has become a gangrene that has been coming that we should have handled 10 years ago. And then it has spread to a certain place that is not crippling our budget system and crippling the sustainability of the economy, the chances of us getting to another 10 years at the current problem. So now, but of course, an amputation is a very painful thing. Okay, you have to maybe do with one leg for the rest of your life or something, or you may need to get something to support your leg. So it's a tough decision. On the one hand, if you need that amputation, you save your life. On the other hand, that amputation is going to cause some dislocations in your everyday life. And then the doctor has prescribed that you do the amputation.
So in a nutshell,
okay. In a nutshell, it's justifiable, but it's going to be very painful. And the question is, what is the timing we are talking about now? We were supposed to do that 10 years ago. Yeah. Now the time has come. And now it's not the best time because the gangrene, like I talked about, has moved from the leg, has gotten close to the chest, where it can cripple the blood vessels.
Okay.
And
let me question that, Dr.
So that's the problem.
You share in these sentiments, economically speaking?
Yeah, the issue of subsidy is a very complex issue. You know, it depends on what side you are looking at it from. So subsidy on what is really the question. Are we subsidizing fuel or we are subsidizing other factors? You know, I have a problem with the fact that I think we are subsidizing foreign exchange problem. Because there was a time when oil was about $100 per barrel during Jonathan's time. And we're paying 65 naira, 70 naira per liter at our filling stations. And now oil is 80, I think 88 as at yesterday. So that means international oil price has dropped. So expectedly, our pump price should also drop. But it has happened that we are now paying more at 145 as against it. So we are subsidizing a foreign exchange problem. The fact that oil was selling, the dollar was exchanging to naira at $150 during that period, and now it's about 500. So we are subsidizing a foreign exchange problem, not really fuel. So it's difficult to now justify, are we removing it? But I want to look at subsidy from 4 perspectives. You know, we talk about removing subsidy, and I think it's common among the elites. The elites feel that subsidy should go. So the Governors Forum had a meeting. They want subsidy to leave. Why? So that allocations to the federal ports can increase. And so that's a selfish end. They will look at the government itself, the federal government. They want subsidy to be removed so that they have enough funds to work with, especially election period like this. They will look at the elites. The elites say the money is going to some hands. So it's almost like a jealousy situation. How will my mates be collecting money that is not meant to go for them? But the masses is the angle that we have to look at it from. It might not be a popular opinion, but the masses have suffered enough economic sins to this point where they are. So what are we subsidizing? What are they doing for commercial transport? I've heard government officials say that the subsidy is subsidizing the elites, but I don't think it's true. Look at Federal Road Safety Corporation. The last, I think 2019, they put on their website the fuel consumption. And they said that 11.8 million, I think it has increased to about 13 million lately, 11.8 million cars are on the roads. Of that 11.8, 6.8 million are commercial vehicles. Just 4.9 is privately owned. And we are about 200 million in the country, and we have about 100 or 120 million adults. So it means that just about 5% of 120 people who own private vehicles are profiting from the subsidy, because it's 4.9 million private vehicles. I mean, just 5 million of the 120 million people have private vehicles. So it's a wrong statistic to say that they are subsidizing the elites. We are rather subsidizing commercial vehicles. 6.8 million of 11.8, that's over 60 million.
So who uses commercial vehicles? The masses?
The masses.
Okay.
And who uses generators? It's for generators. The masses too. And that is also subsidizing government failure in the power sector. And which other sector? We are talking about corruption. They say most of the fuel is exported to neighboring countries. Who is supposed to man the border? Government. So we are subsidizing corruption too. So at the end of the day, I think the masses are the brunt of this. So it's because government has not been able to arrange their home. We talk about, DPRO says we consume 38 million barrels, 1,000 million liters a day. NNPC said no, it's 102 million liters. That because some go to the neighboring countries. So it shows that they don't even have the data. So first of all, I think the subsidy figure that we are even giving of 3 trillion is wrong in the first place. So there should be an arrangement of what is the international price of oil is known. International price of refining oil is also known. The international price for transportation of oil outside the country is known. So why are we playing dilly-dallying with this figure? So until we come transparently to the table and say this and this is the amount, for the under recovery or whatever is not going to private, I don't think the subsidy amount that the government, if it's transparent, is not as burdensome as we try to make it look.
Let me pause it there. Let me come to this way. Prof.
Yes.
Labour is shouting for war.
Yes.
From this analysis, given the statistics that are there for everyone to see, this action or this threat, is it justified?
Just to posit that this topic we are discussing is toxic. It's infuriating, very, very annoying. Anybody talking about subsidy, we are subsidizing crass ignorance. We are subsidizing people that don't have vision. We are subsidizing terrible failure in the balance of governance. We are subsidizing indolence. That is what it is in this country. Where there's no subsidy, there's no... Excuse me, let me tell you, the man who is in presidency now said in 2012 that there's no subsidy anywhere. And then we all took it from him because he was one time Minister of Petroleum. And then also head of state, military head of state. Now you find yourself in government, and then we are talking about subsidy again. When even before you took over, you say you were going to bring pump price to 45 naira per liter from 140 something. So what are we talking about here? Why do you think that? See, I think the problem we have here, leadership and even those that are led. We are a people, the led are a people who are ever busy hoping that one day it will be El Dorado without pain, without. I think the problem we have is our national flag that is green, white, green. In many other countries, you see red on their flag. That is because people have struggled and all that. You see, the Arab Spring was started by a very little boy and all that. In this country, we have continued to just, be browbeating every day. Somebody, they force things on your throat and you accept it and all that. What are they saying? What subsidy? That 50 million liters of fuel finds its way out of this country because our fuel is cheaper than what we have in the neighboring country. Let's calculate it. If 50 million liters goes out, it means you need about 600 and something, 33 liters of that is trailer to take them out. Does that mean that every opening outside this country is now a road? Or does it mean that we no more have what they call the customs or whatever? That is to tell you, people have continued over the years to tell us absolute lies and all that. That is what is happening here. The problem we have is the landing cost or demurrage as it were. Because this country has refused to produce domestic fuel. Let me tell you, of all the countries in OPEC, Nigeria is the only country where, we import about 90 to 95% of our local consumption of fuel. In other countries, everything almost they produce in their countries and even export. Let's look at it now. You have a raw material. You need when you excavate or extract, you give that to somebody to refine for you, and the person brings it back to you, and you pay for it. At the end of the day, who do you think makes profit on this product? So what we have said before, until we begin to refine our own fuel, and intentions have been made in the past, and nobody is asking questions. So many billions of naira have been voted to turn around maintenance of our refineries in this country. Where are those money? Only what the people at NNPC, can you imagine the folly? That some time ago now, NNPC went to give 2.7 billion naira to Dangote refinery. When Dangote was finding it difficult now to handle his debt facilities, they now took Nigerian money into private pocket. That is what we have been funding private.
It's investment.
Investment in what?
Shares.
I say it was finding it difficult to handle his debt maintenance and all that. We can't continue to be fooled in this country. A time has come. I support the hashtag resist hardness.
Okay.
Hardship, I mean.
Let me proceed. Bryce, let's get your perspectives on the reactions that are trailing this planned subsidy removal. 250 billion naira monthly reduction from the accruals to the Federation account is huge. We're looking at, according to statistics, almost about 3 trillion naira by the year 2022. What's your take?
Well, like the previous speakers have said, it is really, really unfortunate that we find ourselves in this kind of situation. First and foremost, the whole essence of having a subsidy regime would have been done long before now. And now we find ourselves in a very, very difficult situation. I don't sincerely think that this is the right time to begin to talk about subsidy. The timing is very, very wrong. I'm glad that elections are coming, 2023. And I also see it as almost impossible for the government of the day to allow for subsidy. They may, of course, just like throw the card to see how resistant the citizens will be. But again, let's be honest with ourselves. When the president was vying for election, at the first election and then in the subsequent election, when he was returned in the second term, he did promise that he was going to, of course, ensure a regime where we would have a reduction in fuel price. But unfortunately, it is a sad story, a sad commentary. When the government came on board also, it came up with a 3-point agenda: the economy, corruption, and then of course security. You will agree with me that the government has totally, with the greatest respect, failed in these all 3 areas. And for the area of economy, which is closely linked or tied to what we are discussing today, the moment government goes ahead or proceeds to implement the subsidy regime, then of course there will be problem in our economy. People will be greatly impoverished. Of course, people will live in squalor. Poverty will be at its highest. There will be insecurity. Of course, corruption will be at its highest. And then, of course, I'm glad a one-time military head of state, General Abdul Salam Abubakar, had also warned. He has seen it all, and then most persons have also seen it all. I hear a lot of persons, particularly economic analysts, talking about the need for having a subsidy regime. Yes, it may be a good idea, but are we telling ourselves the truth? We've not been able to, leadership has not been honest enough to put all the cards on the table and therefore us to be able to appreciate. And like the Prof said, what we see here, it's a situation whereby, of course, Nigerians over time have, particularly leaders have told us about the refineries that have always produced so much large quantity of volume of fuel, which we ought to even export to other nations. But unfortunately, we see that rather we get fuel being imported into our country, which puts us in a very, very difficult situation and in a quandary. Of course, we must tell ourselves the truth about to what extent, and what is the corruption that we say we are pursuing, when in fact so much money have been invested into the trying to revamp our refinery, and nothing is being done, and nothing has been seen to be done. And of course, looking at the exchange rates too, talking about importing fuel into the country, and there's so much racketeering around within those who are giving licenses to import fuel into the country. Of course, we are all living witnesses to what has been going on. So, but please, it is important that we send a very strong warning and signal to the government of the day, be it the federal government and the National Economic Council, which has recommended that there should be a removal of subsidy. They know within themselves, like my brother here has also posited, they have their interests. And of course, they want to protect their interests. But let it be known that if there is poverty, disease, and impoverishment of members of the public who are in larger majority, then of course the man who says is comfortable, is in the helm of power and position, would not be comfortable, because we never can tell where some of this banditry, insecurity are coming from.
Thank you very much. Listen, I'd like to come back to you.
Yes.
Let's look at the budget for this year,
Okay.
running into trillions of naira.
Of course.
And then look at what we start to benefit from subsidy removal.
Yes.
If we don't take that option, how do we fund the budget? We have been borrowing, and from the last count, we have been told that we're just on the verge, just on a few percent, maybe 0.2% thereabout, to escape another recession. Let's get your perspective on this.
Yeah, like I said, when we are discussing this subsidy issue, there's a tendency to be a little bit emotional about it. But let's look at the figures. Let's talk like statisticians. Facts do not have color. And so it's easy for you to see the direction. The question you should have asked is this: why are we borrowing to fund our budget? Question one, why? Because we don't have the funds, that's first of all. Two, a country that is borrowing to fund its budget, why will it be subsidizing to the tune of about 2 trillion? In economics, we have two types of subsidies. We have production subsidies, we have consumption subsidies. The type you see that they do other parts of the world is subsidizing producers who will now sell the product at a reasonable price. But here, this type of subsidy is subsidizing consumption. There are two different things entirely. The objective of this subsidy is to make sure Nigerians live a better life at a lower price. But with that subsidy, look at the price currently, 160 something, still one of the highest relative to the minimum wage of this country. Nigeria still pays one of the highest for petrol. Okay, that shows. And in 2011, let's not get emotional about it. According to my learned economist, he said 2011, the price of petrol was, crude oil was very low compared to, it was high compared to what it is now. Yeah. And there was still the subsidy problem. In fact, there was a national discourse on the issue. Now that it is low, there's still the subsidy problem. So we can see that there are a lot of factors that go into the costing of petroleum products. We must understand the cost of petrol is not directly related to the price of crude oil. Most people do not know that. There are many, many costs in between in the process. Even if price of crude oil is zero, there will still be a high cost of petrol because of the basic mechanics of it. So why am I saying this? When we talk about subsidy, it's painful because if you are looking at it from the receiving end, the person that is going to buy the petrol, it is very painful. It's not worth discussing. But then let's keep asking the same question. That's why I liken it to gangrene. If we do not remove the subsidy, are we ignoring the very fact that 200 billion every month to a year, which is 3 trillion, are we ignoring that very, very fact? Known fact, not paper fact. Known fact, according to the NNPC report, that by the end of 2022, we are going to be subsidizing to the tune of 3 trillion, knowing that our budget is not more than 15 trillion. So we are spending nothing more than 15 to 20% of our budget subsidizing a product, which just 10 years ago, it was 1.6 trillion as at that time. And for 10 years, it was undone, and now it has gotten to projection of 3 trillion. Like I told you, I called it gangrene. Let me tell you, I agree with him on so many fronts. First of all, we are subsidizing the corruption of government. We are subsidizing the inefficiency of government. We are subsidizing the black holes in the government purses. Are you getting the point? So this is a failure of the government. For example, basic economics know that government is a bad businessman. The reason why the business sector, the petroleum sector refused to work is because it is managed by government. They do not operate on corporate governance rules. There's political consideration. So NNPC, you cannot compare NNPC the way a government banks run and the way a private banks run. This is the first time in Nigeria's history that we are having a private investor in the size of Aliko Dangote going to a refinery business, who operates on corporate governance, who has run the business. NNPC is not a typical business run on business principles. And because of that, this turnaround maintenance and these things, they are politically motivated because NNPC itself is a government-owned agency. So when somebody steals $50 billion from the turnaround maintenance business, how do you know who is going to probe? What are the transparency rules to check? Okay. But if it was a private refinery, you give money for turnaround maintenance and it is not working, somebody will go to jail. A lot of auditing will go on because private investors have private interest. Yeah. So we should have asked the question, why is the government inefficient? First of all, one, because government wants to do everything. This is the first step. So what this thing, subsidy does is this. One, it allows private investors who are greedy to come into the business and invest in the private refinery business, which we have not seen in the long time. What we have is small rickety refinery plots around, and they're illegal. But now that the government is allowing people to come inside, at a reasonable price, private businessmen will get greedy, and then they'll come to have investors. That's going forward. Now, secondly, when you remove the subsidy, it is a painful thing, and like I said, I'm a Nigerian too, I'm talking. If you remove the subsidy, in the next 1 year, most Nigerians we cry foul. A lot, in fact, currently 80 million Nigerians are poor. More we go into poverty. These are the arguments. But we have what we call the short term and the long term. You know, sometimes we tend to sacrifice the long term for the short term. That is why I said something. It's not in the best interest of government to remove the subsidy now. In case people are thinking it's a benefit, it's not a benefit. When election is coming, it is not in the best interest of government to frustrate Nigerians because that will take them out of power. We must understand that this one is not pure politics here. This is, if you want to know, it is not politics. It was politics that brought this government to power because the government promised us that they are going to make it cheap. It was their campaign slogan. The fact that they came in and they now saw the mechanics, the economics of it, and it's not even worse, and the government itself is rescinding against popular opinion, against what he promised, shows that the government, first of all, is admitting guilt, admitting swindling Nigerians with little haphazard information. Which means the information they were using to make those promises as at 10 years ago was nonsense, was not empirical, it was emotional. The very kind of arguments we like to hear. Okay. And now they've got to power. 8 years, the same arguments cropped up in the same tone, but worse. The same argument. So like I said, we may look at Nigerians are being shortchanged. But let me tell you, if private investors go into this oil business, Nigerians will not be shortchanged because they are capitalist oriented. Yeah. They tend to operate on business principles. Yeah. And so they get greedy. You are seeing Dangote refinery, for instance, now. If you remove the subsidy, I assure you in the next 10 years, based on my economic knowledge, over 10 refineries will come to this country, and then they will compete among themselves, and then this money will spread around this country. You know, it's like when MTN came to this country, I mean, the other networks. Yeah. I remember that time I bought my first SIM for 25,000 naira. It's because it's private. It's always painful at first. But now you can get a SIM for 250 naira.
Let me just get
These are the issues we must get to.
Ventilate your views on something which has to do with the fact that as part of this subsidy removal, there's a plan to give some cushions to the poorest of the poor in the country to the tune of 5,000 now, thereabout. Yeah. You want to say something about that?
Yes, I also have a problem with that because it seems like it's another way for government to replace the subsidy with another, because it seems like this subsidy is just meant for private hands. So you are replacing subsidy with 5,000 for a year. So I think government is not sincere with how we want to move this country forward. I'm not sympathetic with the fact that you were saying that the budget is laced on debts, so they have to remove the budget. You don't sympathize for someone who is not sympathetic with his own self. We have, what has government, when you fail to plan, then this is the situation you find yourself. We talk about aligning the forces of supply and demand to work a market price, but that's not also correct. Where is the supply coming from? This is an externally determined supply that is determined by foreign exchange. The demand is domestic. I buy fuel at the filling station with my naira. Then you are importing fuel with dollars, $500 naira to a dollar. So when you exchange it, so this is not supply and demand at force. This is external supply determined by foreign exchange coming to. So the argument of supply and demand determining market price is not even correct in my own view on this point. So I am saying that we should not be sympathetic to government. There are other, do you know there are other ways, there are other components of the budget that consume as much as this subsidy amount in that same budget. Funding, politicians, there are aids, you have SA, you have SSA, you have so many portfolios. The SSA has its own PA, has its own. So it's just, I don't know, it's the elites who, I don't know, it's a problem. But I think also that we should not be sympathetic. If government wants to solve the problem, there are very simple ways. We talked about modular refineries. Exactly. Modular refineries are there. They are saying that to have a modular refinery, you have to pay $50,000 for a license to get a modular refinery. That's about 30 million. A modular refinery has a production capacity of about 10 to 20 barrels a day. So it means that probably NUJ Cooperative, Unibank Cooperative can set up a modular refinery. That's what it's supposed to be. Then you pay $50,000 to get a license. You pay $500,000 processing fee. Then when you construct, which is just valid for 2 years, when you construct, you pay $1,000 operation fee. So government is not serious on aligned production, because until we have outputs, enough output, production, we will still have a problem. You call Dangote. Dangote is going to, for the first 5 years, he borrowed heavy money from the banks and financial institutions. He's going to pay his interest before he even makes his profit. So we are not, until we get to that point where we have those modular refineries that help. So government should find a way to make licenses free so that we have this enough output. Until that is done, we'll just be going around in circles. And also, the point that we have to be, the 5,000 is just another way. This election period. We had a period, 2016, when there was this imbroglio between Labour and the federal government. The federal government committed itself to ensure that this CMP, compressed natural gas, is developed so that we have vehicles. $2.60 billion was committed in 2016 to this CNG. Until today, it has not taken off. Where did that money go for? Ivory Coast, when I was checking the data, about 10,000 vehicles as at now runs on CNG. Egypt, about 38,000 runs on CNG. Nigeria, we are still where we are. So I don't think there's a honest desire for government to move forward in the first place.
Let me pause you there.
So until they are sympathetic.
So what is the way out if we're saying that is a no for fuel subsidy removal? I mean, just like
it's not. We don't. It's like oxygen. There's no other way. There's no problem. There's no need for the removal, I mean the increase in pump price, because it is not subsidy. There's no subsidy. I keep saying there's no subsidy because in 1988, Babangida removed subsidy. In 2012, Jonathan's government removed subsidy, and that was what caused the Occupy Nigeria and all that. And this year, somebody else is talking about subsidy that have been removed by how many governments? And then so what? If we don't produce fuel domestically, we will continue to remove subsidy. We will continue to talk about subsidy.
So the emphasis should be on local production.
The emphasis, that is just what it is. The average Urobo woman is able to distill ogogoro, distill a broth and get out ogogoro, and it's the same process of manufacture that you have. It is only when you now want to break the higher fractions of hydrocarbons into lower fractions of fuel, that is when you now need a high-tech equipment to be able to produce fuel. And so, why can't we do this? We can do it. But like Osaje has said, a trap has been set for local production by the same government, because some persons are lining their pockets with ill-gotten wealth through the importation of fuel. Doesn't it beat you hollow that you have a raw material? You need to give it out to somebody to produce for you and later sell it back to you. Is it the cost of selling it back that some persons will keep back in foreign banks, and many of them have died before losing our money to foreign banks and all that? So when are we going to be cured of foolishness in Nigeria? That is my problem, because what is really here as a problem is crass ignorance, visionless, foolish attitude. That is what is causing the problem we have in this country. And until we decide to come to light, allow light to permeate, when we will be where we are. It's so easy. It's so easy, because if anybody who make peaceful resistance impossible, we allow violence, that is what is going to happen. So there's no need to try it.
Yes, if you want to put the lack on that.
Yes, I think some time ago we were all witnesses to the House of Representatives investigative hearing that exposed Femi Otodola and Honorable Farouk Lawa. Reports were eventually made available to members of the public about that investigation. Have we been able to take advantage, I mean particularly the federal government, take advantage of some of those things that we identified as the problem that affects the whole subsidy arrangement? Well, in my own opinion, the subsidy regime is a scam. Like we have said, and that is the reaction everywhere, very few persons are beneficiaries and are going to be beneficiaries ultimately of this subsidy regime. So, it is our advice, and it is my very strong opinion too, that the government should be very honest and sincere about this whole thing, get all stakeholders together to be able to identify ways of getting out of this. Particularly, we should encourage local production. And I think that point has been ably made. Local production of fuel within our country. Then we should discourage the exports or the smuggling out of our products out of this country. They are in charge of the borders. The customs and other the immigration officers are all there. Why do you come to tell us that, oh, because it is more expensive outside, then we have so many tankers leaving the country? We must be honest with ourselves. Then, of course, encourage, like I said, encourage local production. The refineries are there. By the time we begin to allow this to thrive, then, of course, we will not be saying ourselves, talking about subsidy. After 10 years, someone comes again to say subsidy and the rest of them. Government should stay and just jettison the whole idea or plan of having to remove subsidy, because the consequences and the hardship that Nigerians will face would not be easy for anyone to contend with. And you know that we live in a country where things, once they rise, the prices of goods go up, they never come down. So we must be guided by that.
If you just join us, it's still Politics Today on independent television and radio. Maybe we can say on the show today, our focus is on the politics surrounding the subsidy removal. Quite frankly, it's a very, very tortuous journey when it comes to the debate on subsidy. But we'll see how government will respond. But what is quite intriguing, the Senate President visited Mr. President recently, And in an interview with journalists, he came out to say, Mr. President has said he has not ordered anybody to remove subsidy.
Yeah.
So who are now the arrowheads of this subsidy removal?
Yeah.
Why is that it's taking the front burner in our discussion? Let me quickly get short responses on this.
Yeah.
Mr. President is saying, I've not asked anybody to remove fuel subsidy. So who are the arrowheads of this subsidy removal?
Yes, we must not take the president's statement seriously.
Why?
This is the reason why. If you watch the president giving any interview, his answers are usually, they are not, you can't take them at face value.
Paradox.
They are paradoxical. So how when the president says, I have not, and then we have been checking the handwriting on the wall, there have been meetings and discussing of how to remove the subsidy. What the president is simply saying is that I have not said it officially, but it is in the works. If it's in the works, we should not take the president's statement to mean some people are working. The president is totally in the know of the decisions by these bodies that are planning. And then he simply is saying, I have not officially said it, so why is it in the news? That's what they are simply saying. That's how we should take it. Because I must tell you, the federal government is very serious about removing this subsidy. They are serious. We should not think that they are serious. It will make or break the government if we do not remove the subsidy. And like I said, let's not get emotional. I'll ask a few questions. Do we encourage pure water producers to produce pure water? No. You see them everywhere. Check the products that we use. Have we encouraged anybody to produce anything?
Not at all.
You know why? Because government is not interested in those things. I assure you. As long as government is still the chief dominant producer of our petroleum products in this country, it will always be besieged by corruption, ineptitude, and crass failure, which we have seen. Check NITEL. Check Nigeria Railway Corporation. Check anything that they put Nigeria in front, NITEL and whatever. They all failed because they are run by incompetent bureaucrats who are working more on political. But what is simply happening here is this. We want to relocate the economy from the hands of the government to the private sector. That's what's simply happening here. And so when you do that, you are going to allow market prices to allow these people play. You don't encourage people to produce things. People will be greedy by the price. Quite naturally. Like I said, Dangote, the refinery we're talking about, is going to produce 600,000 barrels refining capacity. That is a local producer. Now, if you raise the price, allowing him to keep his production within the country, then it therefore means that we'll save a lot of foreign exchange, about $30 billion in the next 2 years. At first, it will appear as if he's taking the whole of Nigeria for a ride because he's going to pay back. But there's something that goes with that. There's no law that allows him to operate a monopoly. It will force other people. We see BUA investments is going towards refinery now. I assure you, I told you in the next 10 years, capitalists will come in. And when that comes, that's what we call local production. We don't need government to be telling us. Government has no business telling us, look, encourage local production. Those $50,000 my friend talked about, it is negligible in the oil industry. $50,000 is negligible. It's when you look at it from this angle. In that industry, $50,000 is a dot compared to the capacity of that industry. They talk about billions and billions and billions of dollars. In fact, that refinery alone is spending close to $19 to $20 billion to set up. So $50,000 to get registration. If Nigerians are serious about business, if government says $50,000 and communities can come together, put $50,000 is not enough for people to drink beer. That's what I'm trying to say. We are not business oriented. We are always talking about government. We should stop talking about government in this country and relocate this economy from the government to the private sector where they operate on best practices. Okay. And then that is the only way Nigeria can become an industrial giant. We should stop talking about government this, government that. Tell me one thing that government did in this country that worked. Just tell me one. Okay, if you can tell me one, then I have hope in that government.
Information, though.
All right.
Information, sir.
Yeah, information.
The information, yes. Is it not the same idea that has kept the best of brains in governance away from contesting election, where you have put millions of naira for you to be able to take form?
Yeah.
You will have ease of doing business in Nigeria. A way of encouraging people to be able to manufacture and produce, handled by the office of the vice president. Why put that amount of money? Because those who have head don't have cap to put on it. If you put 50,000, I don't have, but I know how to do distillation. Do you understand? Yeah. That is what I'm talking about.
Okay, let's quickly just cut this on before we open our studio lines and let the calls come in. Please, when you do call, endeavor to turn down the audio level on your TV or radio and be brief because others are waiting. Let's not really get emotional because it can be very, very toxic, like Prof said a while ago, the issue of fuel subsidy. But Ustaz, all of these conversations were supposed to have been addressed with the unbundling of the oil industry. The Petroleum Industry Governance Act has been in place. The downstream sector has been unbundled. The upstream sector has been, and all of those things are taken. But just give me a comment on that quickly. Yeah,
the PIA was meant to. It says that every petroleum product has to be deregulated. So simply, impliedly, by the fact that the act has been passed, it even criminalizes subsidy. But the government, so that's what it is. That it criminalizes subsidy because you are not supposed. It should be deregulated. That's what it is on paper. But as it stands, government has failed in all this. We talk about we have to allow long-term gains. Then what happens to these amounts that were put in turnaround, maintenance, So let's say the people have to bear economic sense, as we have always done. We buy SUVs because our roads are bad. We fly aeroplane because we have insecurity. So we sink borehole because there's no public water. So that's what it is. But let me just quickly say this: the subsidy issue has now almost become like a leprosy. So that even the president now denied that he did not tell anybody to remove it. So the Senate president himself has also said that he went to his constituency and his people say that. So when the two heads of the major arms of government, it's not like you need a 10-foot pole to touch subsidy. It's not like a leprous thing. But so far they know that the hardship on the country, on the people is going to be very, very terrible. They know it. They know it. But I want to say quickly in summary, the government has to ramp up local production. There's no alternative to it. There is a presidential artisanal gold mining development initiative in the north that allows people to mine gold, just like Prof was saying, in the north, and it's allowed. So why don't we have a presidential artisanal crude oil refinery development initiative in the south, instead of clamping down on our local refineries in the Niger Delta? That means we are not ready to ramp up. Provide such a body so that we have production at different levels. It's all aimed at ramping up. Because to ramp up output, we'll keep going in circles. Let me
get a final word from you. Our studio line is 052290573. On Politics Today. Call the number right now and you'll be able to participate on the live conversations on the show this beautiful Saturday morning. Let's get your take on final note, Barrister.
Yes, just as my brother has said, it is true that the PIB has made ample provisions that will, of course, settle or resolve some of the issues that we're discussing here today. But truth be told again, there are legislations. Then giving effect or teeth to such legislations is another thing. See, never a kettle of fish entirely. So as a matter of fact, we know that fear is an essential commodity. Very, very essential because it drives a lot of things. It drives the economy. So if we take it so lightly, of course, we'll know what it is going to cost. Like has been expressed, the heads of the various arms of government, particularly the executive and the legislature, have come to deny. Maybe perhaps they are trying to test the waters.
Okay, let's get this call. Good morning, caller. Tell us your name and where you call it from. It's Politics Today. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Dr. Open Secret. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, I thank the gentlemen. You have actually not to water. But from our perspective, if any mistake wants to talk about removal of subsidy, the civil disease is presently if you allow them to continue to talk about subsidy and removal of subsidy, it means that they are taking the entire Nigeria for granted and they are playing our sector. These are the people who went to high heaven, occupied Nigeria for about 1 week that subsidies will come. And they made the whole Nigeria to believe, those Nigerians to believe that the Lobinatan came and going to put them whether today they are not sure about they are anything higher subsidy. So they have less than 1 year to do. First of all, let's how much the other called a national conference and apologize to those that we like to
Yeah, it is in order.
That is true.
Yes.
It's not reconciliation without restitution. There has to be restitution first.
So, remember our subsidy to me continue to come. Why are we doing this?
Okay, Dr. Opposite, I'll pass you there before you go off track. You're just on the verge of doing that. Anyway, thanks for calling. Good morning, caller. Yeah, good morning. Go ahead, Pastor Isaac. Thank you.
It's as if the government is benefiting from massive hardship. Yeah, I will not talk to thank you for the kind of people who brought the children.
Thank you.
Because the government has said that if you do not even establish
A refinery.
refinery.
Yes.
So the next one understand that's the government thank you. With the kind of people they say, I know that now. I never met before. That if you do not establish a refinery, so nobody will stop us to appreciate you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Our studio number 0522905573. Tell us your name and where you're calling from, and go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, comrade. My name is Comrade Xray. I'm watching you like my direct.
Thank you, Comrade Dixon. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this issue you guys are deliberating on, Nigerian leaders are wicked. Sorry to use that kind of expression like that.
But how do you justify that statement?
Yes, that's what I say, I'm sorry. Because if Nigeria is where to do country, everything we needed in Nigeria are in Nigeria. Are you ready me now? But the leaders, they do fight for their pocket. They don't think of the masses at all. They don't think of the masses. Because if you see all that country that's not up to Nigeria, they are doing very well. Nigeria has become a slave to other countries. And the riches of other countries come from Nigeria. Is it the butchers?
Okay. Let me pause you there. Our last caller on the show today. Tell us your name and where you calling us from. Good morning. Hello, caller. Good morning. Tell us your name and where you calling from. Good morning.
Hello?
Yes, good morning. What's your name and where you calling us from?
Good morning, Mr. Nicky. God bless you for taking my call.
Thank you, sir.
I am Mr. calling from Uganda.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to thank my prof, Professor Yasere and Santa Bayo, and two other gentlemen in the studio.
Thank you.
I will go straight to the point. The solution is what I want to talk about. Federal government should, as a matter of urgency, reduce the registration fee for modular refinery from $50,000 to $5,000. Just $5,000 to enable a lot of players enter the business. Then secondly, the gentleman that made mention of an initiative in the north concerning gold mining among youth and players in the north. I want that to be replicated in the south. Let such initiative be pronounced by the federal government in the south so that our youth could, start a job, start doing their modular refinery, refining at different stages, so that active, could increase. Because that is the only solution.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't know what will happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for. Hello, caller. Good morning. What's your name? Yeah, please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
This is Moses. Sir, I want to speak to you in English, sir. I want to ask them one question. When all of us they forget, 1976, they introduced subsidy, sir. 1978, Biden just become president. They're not even be subsidy. Then, 1980, 1979, this person become president as they call it. Shagari. Sorry, sir. Shagari, then when he come overthrow, you know, the subsidy for them and that. Why God tell us there's no subsidy? If you say a lot with the subsidy by that, why God tell us there's no subsidy? How come subsidy can't take on that? So let me ask what President Buhari how much subsidy they come back, and which way they use the money they do to Nigeria. When Nigeria is benefit from just with the way that organic job for the FA, they will move back so that they not refinery because then after that they figure say if they move this Nigeria NEPA come from with the donor to give them so that everybody will come together and go together and the case.
All right.
Come to the world.
All right. Let's pursue that because our time is up. I want to say big thanks to everyone that made the program a huge success. Dr. Osaze Iyoha, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
And Destiny,
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Prof, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that short notices. Thank you. Well, that's our package for today on Politics Today on Independent Television and Radio. From the pause of our panelists here, you can model it and see how the populace feel about subsidy removal. But there are quick wins, there are things to be done to be able to address the issue of shortfall in terms of funding the 2022 budget. People have talked about the cost of governance that is on the high side, from the executive to the legislature to the judiciary. We need to look at that. Our panelists here have agreed that we need to increase local production. Interestingly, the capacity to do local production is there. Whether we like it or not, we may be buying petrol in filling stations that were produced from the Niger Delta, from some of those ramshackle refineries that have been destroyed daily in the night. We may be buying from them, but without knowing. All we need to do, like some have suggested, is for us to harness these potentials, strengthen their capacities, and then all of these brouhaha about fuel subsidy removal or not will be a thing of the past. And that way, we'll increase local production. If there is a gold initiative in the north where individuals can go into gold mining, I don't see anything wrong in having that replicated in the south, where people like us can also go into crude oil production. The ultimate goal is to ensure we increase local output, increase the amount of fuel that is available, and the business can. I mean, let's even look at the multiplier effect of doing such a thing. I mean, a lot of people will be off the street in terms of employment. The economy will boom.
GDP.
More people will pay taxes. So it's a win-win. And I'm just wondering why it's so difficult for those in authorities to see some of these things doing. Anyway, that's a matter for another day. That's our show today. Big thanks to all our crew members for making the program a huge success. Have a beautiful weekend and bye for now.